Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Happy Friday evening to you. Welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. From downtown Columbia, we head into a terrific weekend for sports, college basketball, NFL championship games, recruiting weekends, and more. We're going to talk all about it here on Sports Talk tonight. Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary. The empty chair tonight is the professor, Tom Hayes, and the state man, Graham Pope. Once again, behind the bulletproof glass, your thoughts welcome tonight. Early and often, 800-956-7266 is how you can get right through to us. 800-956-7266. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com. On Twitter @sportstalksc. A lot of things to talk about. Chris Lowe of ESPN.com did an interview with Steve Spurrier, in which Spurrier said he considered ending it after this past season.
It's not the first time he's wanted to end it after a bad season. Remember, he said he thought about quitting after the 2008 season when they got blown out in the Outback Bowl.
But nobody really
Iowa.
believed that. I mean, nobody really believed he would quit then.
Well, I don't think it had as much fire to it, but there were rumblings in 2008, and he was asked. It got to the point where he was asked, did he think about quitting? And he said, yeah, anytime you lose like that, you think about quitting. They'd lost to Clemson the week before, or not the game before, I shouldn't say. So it's not he's a reactionary guy, but now he's 70. I mean, he's on the twilight of his career, and he says 4 to 5 years. I mean, that's the max number.
Which I don't believe.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they got back and they're winning 11 games again, yeah, he'd probably stick around. But if they go through another year like they did this year, where they're losing games and blowing leads and not finishing games off, no, he's not going to hang around for 4 or 5 more 6-6, 7-4 type seasons.
Well, then that's not needs to get out there and do something about it then from that standpoint. But I really believe the comment he made to Josh Kendall on the Monday after the loss to Clemson, when he uttered the 2 to 3 more years, just give me 2 to 3 more years, I really believe that was in his heart. I think that was what he was truly thinking and feeling. And people can say that it was reactionary to the loss, but I really believe that's where he really believed that the only reason he said during a bowl practice or after a bowl practice, and I'm back on the 4 to 5 year plan now, is because his coach has gotten his ears and said, you got to fix this because we're getting killed out here in recruiting. If you want to salvage anything of this recruiting class, you got to get out there and at least pretend like you're going to be here 4 to 5 more years. Now, you might be right. If things turn around in this coming year and they have a 8, 9, 10 win season and have a chance maybe to win the East and show major progress, then you got this hotshot quarterback coming in 2016, or maybe Lorenzo Nunez develops, whatever the case may be, he might keep it good. I'm not thinking along those lines right now for him. I think another 7-6 or worse, he might decide to go ahead and make it a career. Your thoughts on that and more coming up. He said, "Come here." Okay. Hang on. Come on. All right, we're here.
That was
the state man was waving me into the studio, I thought.
Oh, I thought I did think he said come here too. I thought
he did. He said come here. I said, what's
beautiful
up?
Radio, right? That was epic radio. That was great. Friday. Award-winning radio. That's why we're the best.
Yeah, two professionals in there, guys.
Yeah.
Right there. Well, I was confused.
Did you hit the dump button at least? Did you save us 8 seconds? Oh, you didn't even hit the dump button.
That was somebody probably thought they were listening. They said it finally happened. Phil died on the air. I always knew this thing would happen.
That has happened many times.
Actually died on the air.
Dying on the air is something we do with
that's what you're. I mean, are you on the 4 to 5 year plan too?
Absolutely.
Spurrier?
I'm on the 15 to 20 year plan. All right, that's what you got me for. Okay, 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Email talkback at sportstalksc.com. On Twitter at sportstalksc. And on Facebook, Sports Talk Radio Network. The website is sportstalksc.com. And the lines are now open for you if you'd like to join us tonight. And we'll talk about Steve Spurrier's comments in a moment. Get your take on that. Want to get your thoughts on the championship games on Sunday. Who do you like? Green Bay, or Seattle, or the Colts and Patriots? Personally, I feel as if the majority of America is hoping for a Packers-Colts Super Bowl, because that would be a turn back the clock kind of deal to see the big G up against the big horseshoe on the football field in a championship setting. Once again, that takes you back to 1965, 1966, when the Packers and the Colts ruled the NFL. Are you paying attention, K-Mac?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Are you tweeting all this? I see your thumbs are moving very quickly.
I'm actually documenting all of it.
So anyway,
I know you want the Packers and the Colts to remind you of your
really
youth,
care about the Colts. I do that for a friend of mine, but I mean, all I care about is the Packers. I just want the Packers against somebody.
Yeah.
I just want the Packers against somebody. And I think we're going to win. Been listening to a lot of Green Bay sports talk this week, kind of getting the feel for things up there.
Unbiased. Did you see in Seattle they have banned cheese?
Yes, I heard that. That's silly. Ridiculous. That's just silly. I mean, what are you going to do with your Swiss cheese now that you can't take it into the state of Washington, But, there are things that are different about the Packers this time around compared to the season opening game that will work to their advantage. So,
yeah, I mean, they have a quarterback that's hobbling around.
No, he's not too bad. First of all, he proved that he can still win from the pocket. As long as he can slide around, he'll be fine. Secondly,
playing a better defense this week.
Yeah, they
Much
are.
Better
but
defense.
They've already played this defense. They're going to attack Richard Sherman. They're going to attack Richard Sherman this time
30-16 in that.
Something like that. It was not real close. They did a very nice job.
But I think that's good for the Packers.
Did not have a great game plan. They only played to one side of the field, the side that Richard Sherman was not lined up on. They're not going to let that happen this time around. And they have a much better third receiver in Adams compared to when they played that first game of the year, when Boykin was that number 3 receiver. Much better threat at that third wide receiver spot. All makes a difference. And the Packers are playing much better defense too. So I like the Packers. Are you ready? I like the Packers. Here we go. 27-20. Other side, I'd like to see the Colts win, but I got to go with Brady and the Patriots at home. And it's going to probably be a shootout. 35-31. You think? What?
I like Seattle at home. I like the 2 home teams this weekend.
Homer?
The Patriots. Yeah, I'm a homer. The home team. I don't have a rooting interest in any team still playing. I am pulling for Coach Googe, offensive line coach there with the Patriots.
Why don't you pull for Don Papers? Used to be with
Former
the Panthers
coach.
That's close enough.
Best comb over in the NFL.
Really, no, it's the worst.
I think it's the same when you talk about a comb over. But Seattle's, they're playing so well, and they're playing at home. Such a tough place.
Sometimes home can work against you.
It hasn't worked against them. I think they're what are they? 27-2 at home over the past.
The Packers had that long winning streak at home in the playoffs, and that went away for a while. So it can happen. It can happen.
I mean, yeah, and Aaron Rodgers and And, the Packers have weapons. It's not like they're crippled. They're a very good team, and they're in the NFC Championship for a reason. But I still think there's a reason why Seattle's playing at home right now, and why they're the defending
the only
champs.
reason they're playing at home right now is because the Packers lost at Buffalo late in the season.
Yeah, and because they earned it. They have the best record in the NFC.
If we don't lose that game, we have the best record.
If ifs and buts were candies and nuts.
But I'm okay. I'm okay going on the road. It's a business trip for us,
Right.
Leave the wife and kids at home. Focus. We're going in there on business. This is not any sort of a vacation from our standpoint.
No, of course not. They're not going to be going up the Space Needle and taking pictures.
I don't think
tonight.
so.
That's what you're saying.
No. And see, the Packers went in yesterday, actually.
Yeah.
Today. Today's Friday. They went in today.
You got to get acclimated.
Yeah, went in a day early. This
Panthers went in a day
shows
early,
you how
too.
serious we are.
They were serious, too. They went in a day early.
Hey, we're not the Panthers, okay? Seriously. We're not the Panthers. All right, here is what Spurrier said to Chris Lowe from ESPN.com. Chris does his annual interview with Spurrier, really semi-annual. He usually gets him a couple of times a year.
He gets them whenever he wants them.
Yeah. So here's what Spurrier had to say, some of his quotes. He said, it was a disappointing season for all of us, some dark days, but that's history now, and away we go, he said. Of course, the history, and he said that recent USC history of 3 straight 11-win seasons, 7-6 this year. Spurrier, who'll be 70 in April, conceded, contemplated hanging it up following the regular season. He even had a couple of conversations with Ray Tanner along those lines. But the Gamecocks won their bowl game, giving them 3 wins in their last 4 games. Spurrier said he's in a much better place now and as energized as ever to return the program to prominence. Quote, when you do it as long as I have and you lose games the way we did this year, you have those thoughts that maybe it's time to let somebody else come in here and do this. You wonder, what am I doing? That's only normal, but I think everybody knows now that I've still got 4 or 5 more years in me. I've always said that I won't retire. I'll resign, sort of like what Dick LeBeau said the other day when he resigned from the Steelers. He said that he wasn't retiring. I feel the same way. Retiring sounds too much like you're going to quit and do nothing. He went on to say, Spurrier did, in talking about his team's performance, as a coach, all you can ever ask is to play as hard as you can, play as smart as you can, and the outcome will take care of itself. We didn't do either of those this year. As a team, we didn't play with tremendous effort or smarts, and I think that's a big reason we lost the games we did. That starts with me as the head coach. Of course, USC began workouts this morning with their morning runs. Spurrier, I'm looking forward to sort of reinventing South Carolina football. I was down there this morning, and guys were looking around and saying, what is Coach doing here? Everybody was there and running too, but one guy with a bad knee. I told them that I was going to try and be there every Friday morning at 6 a.m. when I'm in town. I told them that we all needed to make a little better commitment, and it starts with me. We need a little bit more togetherness, a little bit more of the team liking each other. When you have a year like we did, you've got to do something different. Get more involved. We've got to become closer as a team. We had players when the game was over and we lost this year acting like it didn't bother them a bit. Sometimes that happens to teams and players get like that, and when it does, you've got to do something about it. Of course, now he writes about the Gamecocks' defensive struggles. Spurrier said, quote, we had chances to make first downs and hold leads and didn't. We might have overestimated our whole team, but everything starts with the head coach, and then it goes to the assistants. If we leave guys on the field who don't want to tackle and don't even try to tackle, that's our fault. We did that some, and that's sad. It's not going to happen again. A couple of more comments from Spurrier coming up. All right, here's a little bit more from Chris Lowe's interview with Steve Spurrier that was published today at ESPN.com. Left off where he was talking about the defense, and now Spurrier is feeling a little bit more optimistic about the defense for 2015. He said, quote, "We've got some good players coming in, a lot better defensive players coming in, we think, than we played with last year. We'll find out." Now, Spurrier, Chris Lowe writes, isn't oblivious to the fact that his age is being used against him in recruiting, and that his statement back in December that he might be on the 2 to 3 year plan scared off some recruits. And Spurrier said, quote, "That's how we lost a few this year. People telling recruits that coach has about had it, or you never know who's going to be your coach if you go to South Carolina," he said. He continued, "My response is that the vice president, Joe Biden, is older than me. Heck, Hillary Clinton, we're about 2 years apart from each other in age, and she's thinking about running for president. What I have to do is quit telling myself my age number. In life, if a person looks old and acts old and talks old, then he's probably old. Sometimes you just have to forget the number on your age and physically and mentally see where you're at, and that sort of determines your ability to function. I know I've got a lot left in me to keep coaching." That Spurrier had to say to Chris Lowe. 800-956-7266. All right, K-Mac, your response to what he had to say.
Well, I think Spurrier is a reactionary guy, as I said in the open, and I don't think there was any doubt in anybody's mind that he was wavering on his future when he wouldn't answer the question. I think you asked him about a half a dozen times by yourself, and he said, I said, the plan is to be back. The plan is to be back. He left a lot of wiggle room there, and then he did the 2 to 3 year thing. But I will say this, seeing him a couple of weeks ago at the basketball game, I guess it was last week when he talked to us after at halftime of the basketball game, he looked a lot better. He really did look refreshed, and I think he's one of those guys, when he got away from it, he probably looked at things and said, you know what? We were in those games. We really should have won a few of them. We did win 3 of our last 4. We got some good recruits in where he's starting to build himself back up and feel better again. I've always thought Steve Spurrier is one bad season away from being done, and I still think that he might be one really good season away from being done. He's 70 years old, or about to be 70 years old. What happens next year is going to be very interesting to see, because they do have some big questions still on the defensive side of the ball, some issues they have to solve. And offensively now, for the first time in 4 or 5 years, they've got to figure out who their quarterback's going to be and what they're going to do at that position. So, and
even if they have a quarterback on campus right now who can
do they have,
successfully run the team, or is he still to come on campus? But I want to come back after the break and talk about some of his other comments that I find are pretty eye-opening, pretty revealing by a head coach. And, this is one of Spurrier's positive traits. He doesn't sugarcoat it, and he tells you, what is on his mind, and he had interesting comments. And we're back at Sports Talk here on a Friday night heading into the weekend. Glad you're with us. Phil Kornblut, Kevin McCrary here tonight. Professor Tom Hayes is off. 800-956-7266 is the number. And lines are open if you'd like to share your opinion about this Chris Lowe story. A couple of things that really jumped out at me. A little bit of insight that Spurrier shared with Chris as far as his inner feelings about his team. And I think it goes along with the 7-6 record, but I kind of got the feeling that in general, he didn't like this team very much. Based on his comments, it sounds like it was a team that didn't play as hard as it could, didn't play as smart as it could. Now, he put the responsibility on him as the head coach and his assistant coach, but he said, quote, "We didn't play with tremendous effort or smarts. And I think that's a big reason we lost the games we did." No excuse. This is me talking. No excuse for a team not playing with tremendous effort. I can understand making some mental mistakes, not playing very smart. That happens, but there's no excuse for not playing with tremendous effort. I found that to be very interesting. And then the fact that he says he's down there at 6 a.m. this morning when they first started running, and he's telling the players that he's going to be there as if he feels the need to convince them that he's fully committed to all aspects of the football program again, and he needs to be there every Friday morning at 6 a.m., maybe something that he wasn't doing this past year. And he also said the more togetherness, a little bit more of a team liking each other. So was there some splintering within the team this past season? Who knows? I mean, it wasn't apparent. It certainly sounded like from the players listening to them throughout the year that they were on the same page and they were pulling for one another. You had what I thought were good leaders on offense. You had Dylan Thompson and A.J. Cann, for example. They seemed to be like really good leaders. Maybe it was on the defensive side where they were lacking some true leadership because there were so many young players involved over there. Pharaoh Cooper, I would think, would have been one of their leaders. And so Spurrier says they need a little more togetherness and they need to become closer as a team. He wasn't happy that some players weren't booking up over a loss, apparently, that they just sort of took it in stride, didn't like that mindset. How do you fix that as a head coach? You just can't. That's not something that you can lecture. That's something that has to be
organic.
Well, it has to be done by the players. The players have to take ownership of the program. We talked about that before. And South Carolina's had a nice run of players who would take leadership roles and take ownership of that locker room.
Yeah, they didn't have as many of those leaders. And Spurrier talked about it during the season. He said, we don't have a DJ Swearinger firing everybody up in the locker room. And, those rah guys, you have to have the balance. And, you have those quiet leaders like Marcus Lattimore. Jadeveon Clowney was more of a quiet type of leader. And then you had your Vic Camptons, your DJ Swearingers that would get in a guy's face and fire people up. They didn't have any of those guys, especially on the defensive end of the side of the ball. Mm-hmm. They didn't have those leaders. And who's going to emerge next year? You have all these newcomers. It's kind of hard for it to be a newcomer. Ideally, you'd like it to be somebody that's already there and established. And, that is a tough deal. I know that Spurrier, I've read, is going to require incoming players for the first 2 to 3 years to live in a dorm. And they're building these new high swank dorms,
living in apartments.
And spreading out. He wants because when that happens, you have ounces that can get in guys' heads. You want everybody to be as tight knit as possible. And the fact that Spurrier's taking it on himself to show up at workouts and do more, maybe that's a good sign. He said last week to us, maybe some of us got cocky. I know they say we cocky. Maybe we were too cocky. We too cocky.
Now they humble.
Yeah, they ate the humble pie last year, so maybe they're hungry again and can get back there. But it all gets back to players. I mean, they won 11 games for 3 straight years because of the guys that I just named. I mean, Marcus Lattimore, Stephon Gilmore, Jadeveon Clowney, DJ Swearinger, Kelsey Quarles, Vic Campton. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. You lose those guys and you don't replace them with good guys.
This is what happens.
Yeah, your defense goes from top 20 to 92nd. I mean, that's not all coaching. I mean, it's it's a lot. And I do think that cocky statement, there's some word on the street that the South Carolina staff might have gotten a little arrogant, not just with their team, but maybe out on the recruiting trail and not recruiting some guys that maybe they should have. You talked about a quarterback issue. Well, 2 great quarterbacks. One's going to be starting at Oklahoma State next year, Mason Rudolph. And maybe they should have made a bigger play for the in-state guys. This Shrine Bowl, they only had 1 Shrine Bowl player committed to South Carolina. And I always look at that sort of thing. I think you should be involved with your local guys. And if you're down to a local guy and a kid in Florida and all things are about equal, take the local guy because you're doing good work for your state and your high school coaches. And I think the reputation, fair or not, out there seems to be from some people that, the South Carolina staff, they're kind of haughty-taughty and, they maybe forgot where they came from, so to speak.
Well, nothing like 6 losses to bring you back down to earth in a hurry. One more Gamecock note. We're told this afternoon that former Gamecock receiver Shaq Rowland may very well end up at Coastal Carolina when it's all said and done. Still has some academic work to do. He would not be eligible to play in 2015. If he ends up going there under his current circumstances, he would have to sit out 2015. He'd be eligible for 1 more year at 2016. It's also still possible that it could be a move to a Division II for him at some point in time. But from what we're told, his number 1 choice right now is to go to Coastal Carolina, sit out 2015, then play 1 more year in 2016. All right. 800-956-7266. Let's hit the phones as we go to Tiger Bryan in Lancaster. Hello, TB. We're doing great. How about you?
Man, I'm doing wonderful, man.
Good.
I tell you what, Phil. I mean, I know everybody's all right. They've been dogging some of these coaches. My fans been coaching your ball coach. Now I'm a Clemson man. I'm taking up Spurrier tonight. This is rare now. You know that.
Yes.
Hey, he has done more. Carolina, they need to build him a statue down at William Bryce when he leaves there.
Well, they already have a life size, or not even bigger than life size,
giant
huge poster going up and down the stadium. That might have been the jinx. They might want to take that bad boy down and put somebody else up there.
I'm talking about when he retires. They need to put a statue of him. They thought.
Oh, they will. Yeah, they will.
They thought he would be like he did at Florida and win national championships. We don't. So, the state of South Carolina, we have to go outside the state to get good ball players at Clemson and South Carolina. And it's just a fact. Florida, they was begging to play for Spurrier back then. He was in his prime, just like Dabo is now.
Well, here's the thing. Well, Dabo hasn't won a national championship yet either. But here's the thing: it's a different game in the SEC now. When he was at Florida, he had to beat essentially Tennessee every year. He owned Georgia. Georgia was down. They had Ray Goff, and they were not the Georgia that you have now. Florida, he didn't have to play Florida because he was coaching Florida. Tennessee was legit. South Carolina was awful. Vanderbilt was awful. Kentucky was awful. So he could run through the East, and then he'd have to play usually Alabama every year in the SEC championship. It's a different game now. The league as a whole is a lot deeper now, and he's got to play Florida every year, and he still has to play those other teams. So anybody that expected him to have that kind of run, or anybody to have that kind of run in the SEC, but he brought them to Atlanta, which a lot of people said South Carolina would never win the East. They did. He won 11 straight games, 11 games, 3 straight years. He's done a lot. He's the winningest coach ever. They will build a statue for him one day at South Carolina. He's accomplished a lot. And even with a 7-6 season last year, over the past 5 years against Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, and Clemson, the biggest rivals, South Carolina has only lost 5 games in 5 years to the biggest rivals on their schedule. So that's pretty big over 5 years.
All right, got to hit a break. Lengthy, meaty, juicy recruiting report coming up. All right, Tiger Brian called back to ask us to tell everyone, give a shout out, at least he wants us to, so that everybody will hear it. A shout out to the Lancaster High School girls basketball team, which they are apparently undefeated in the season. So shout out to the Lancaster, can we call them Lady Bruins? Are they the Bruinettes? Are they just the Bruins? Today and I don't know who boys or girls anymore. I am not saying that, State Man. Okay. State Man said something very sexist. I will not go there. So what do you think, K-Mac? What do you think they are? I think Lady Bruins?
You just call them
Bruinettes?
Sure, call them the Lady Bruins. I'm fine with that.
Lady Bruins.
They're fine with that. Congratulations to them for their undefeated run. May it continue long into the season.
Back in my day, at Atlanta High School, they were
that word. You start a lot of sentences.
Red Raiderettes. The Red Raiderettes. That was a very cool name back then. All right, to recruiting, we go now. Got a lot of stuff for you as we head into the first recruiting weekend of January. First of all, defensive end Tiga Winoka Jr. of Elmore, Alabama, and South Carolina continues to recruit, but currently not included in his schedule of official visits. He goes to LSU this weekend, Tennessee January 23rd, Auburn January 30th. The assistant coach at Edgewood Academy, Todd Taylor, with whom Winogo lives, told us that they want him to take all 5 visits. He'll take these 3, and if he decides he wants to go on the other 2, that will be his choice. Taylor added that Winoka will not sign on National Signing Day because they will not have had enough time to sort everything out, and he might take 1 or 2 more visits. Taylor said he will accompany Winogo on all of his visits. USC recruiter Kirk Botkin met with Winogo Thursday and was on the phone today with Taylor. LSU, Auburn, and Tennessee were also in for visits on Thursday. USC offered offensive lineman Trey Deruin of Lilburn, Georgia, Thursday, according to his post on Twitter Thursday night. USC recruiter was by to see Deruin on Thursday. He also on Thursday met with new Florida coach Jim McElwain, along with coaches from Missouri and Louisville. Florida has not yet offered, according to his coach. Kansas State has come in with a late offer. Deruin will visit Louisville this weekend, USC next weekend, in Florida on the 30th. He might also work in a midweek visit to Kansas State. Offensive lineman Patrick Allen of Reisterstown, Maryland, was contacted via Twitter Thursday by G.A. Mangus of USC. Allen said that Mangus did not say if or when he would be by to see him. No recruiters saw Allen on Thursday. Allen has taken all of his official visits to Georgia, Oklahoma, Michigan, Tennessee, and Arkansas. He has not scheduled any unofficial visits to other schools. He said he's looking the hardest at Georgia, Tennessee, and Oklahoma. At this point, he's a former Georgia commitment. Shrine Bowl defensive lineman Paul McGyver of Batesburg-Leesville is looking primarily at Georgia Southern and Georgia Military Junior College. He's scheduled for an official visit to Georgia Southern January 30th. McGyver plans to reach out to USC about going to junior college and then transferring. He feels going to junior college route may be best for him. He also has offers from Wake Forest, Appalachian State, South Carolina State, and Newberry. USC on Thursday offered junior wide receiver Josh Imator Bihi of Suwanee, Georgia. That's right, Imator Bihi. I guess that's how you pronounce it. Imator How would you pronounce
Sounds
that?
Good to me. Bihi.
Imator Bihi. That's what it looks like. 62202. He put that on his Twitter account. Among his other offers, Ohio State, Florida, Michigan, and Michigan State, very highly recruited junior. Clemson secondary coach Mike Reed was in Chattanooga yesterday to meet with defensive back Kareem Reed. Reed would love to land a commitment from Orr, but first he's got to convince him to take a visit. He hasn't decided on that yet, or hasn't. Orr said that he and Reed met for about an hour. Ohio State, Mississippi State also met with Orr Thursday. Buckeyes, he said, very close to offering. He's high on their board, he said. He's been to Oklahoma, going to Arizona State this weekend. Next Wednesday, he'll decide between Clemson and Mississippi State for a visit January 23rd and between Ohio State and Georgia for a visit January 30th. And he said Dabo Swinney plans to visit him next week. Offensive lineman Nick Buchanan, 6'4", 290 of Dunwoody, Georgia, committed to California in December, remains committed, but others are approaching him to see if he might consider a change. USC and Georgia are two, which recently offered him and are hoping to get him in for an official visit. He says he's still locked into California. He doesn't plan on decommitting, but he's not going to ignore any offers from any schools. More on him and others coming up. All right, back to Nick Buchanan, offensive lineman, Dunwoody, Georgia, California commitment. Anyway, talking about South Carolina, he says he's familiar with South Carolina, having grown up in the state of Georgia. Penn State is also showing strong interest and plans to see him next week. But he said right now Cal still holds the upper hand on everybody, and it will be hard to pry him away. He loves the idea of a degree from Berkeley. Justin Foster, a 2017 linebacker, Shelby, North Carolina, got offered by Clemson today. He tweets that out, his first offer. And Clemson also has offered 2016 offensive lineman Will Fries from Cranford, New Jersey. And Florida State and South Carolina have offered 2017 receiver defensive back Ortre Smith from Wando. Clemson's got its big recruiting weekend this weekend. Those players who have not enrolled at midterm, most of them who are committed to Clemson, who have not enrolled, will be in for their visits, as well as, of course, two non-committed players that they want, Mark Fields Jr. from Cornelius, North Carolina, and Denzel Johnson from AC. Could get commitments from both. Johnson, it appears, is almost a certain lock to commit. Fields may very well commit, may or may not go public with it. He still has Texas and LSU and maybe Florida on his board for possible visits, or he could commit, go public, and end it all this weekend. We'll wait and see what happens there. Committed receiver Deion Kane not going to come in this weekend as expected. He was in a little bit of a traffic accident yesterday, so his mom told TigerNet that they are not coming in this weekend. They'll come in next weekend. Auburn Undercover reported that their offensive coordinator, Rhett Lashley, was in to see Ray McLeod yesterday. And they're saying a source is telling them that the visit went well and that McLeod is apparently considering an Auburn official visit. Of course, you got Florida's been in on him as well. You got one reporter on the internet, Josh Newberg, I think it was, who staked his reputation on it by saying, in his opinion, this is going back a little while, that McLeod would not go to Clemson at the end of the day. Everything points toward him going to Clemson.
Well, I mean, if he wanted to go, he signed his financial papers.
He decided not to enroll early.
He could be there right now if he wanted. If that's 100% what he wanted to do, he could be doing it right now.
Players in state, other players in state taking officials this weekend. Hassan Belton of Blythewood, linebacker, Tennessee State. Receiver J.J. Arcega-Whiteside of Dorman to Stanford. That's key because if he finds out that Stanford is going to accept him while on the visit, then that's done. If not, then it's possible that South Carolina could become more involved. Receiver Tavin Richardson of Burns to Louisville. Offensive lineman Stephen Haralambous of Chapin to Charleston Southern, where he is committed. However, he has picked up offers from Army and Air Force here of late, and they're recruiting him and plan to visit with him in Chapin here coming up next week. So he's still open to the armed forces as a possibility. All right, that's recruiting. Check it out over the weekend as well. SportsTalkSC.com, #STRecruiting. Top of the hour break.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
We're back at Sports Talk Friday night. It's good to have you with us. Busy first hour is behind us. Busy second hour is ahead of us. Coming up, we're going to talk with Chuck Drizel, basketball coach at the Citadel. May have earned his biggest win ever at the Citadel last night, knocking off Wofford. We'll find out from him how he feels about things after that big win last night. Bottom of the hour, Lee Klein, our national basketball analyst, will join us to talk hoop, give us his thoughts on what's happening around the country and also in the SEC, ACC area as well. Also, we'll hear from Clemson coach Brad Brownell about the matchup with Syracuse tomorrow afternoon, 4 o'clock at Littlejohn. K-Mac, the keeper of the Sports Talk Twitter feed, has been checking out the timeline. What do you see of interest?
Yeah, people reacting to Steve Spurrier on both sides, USC and Clemson. Here's a Clemson fan at Tiger Lord. He says, sounds like Steve Spurrier is trying to convince himself that he's not a washed-up old fart. I'm out to pasture.
That's just brutal.
Clemson fans are very salty after that win.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, that win erased, 5 straight. I mean, Steve Spurrier has won 5 of 6 still.
That's all forgotten.
But it's true. That is how sports work, though. I mean, you're
Mm-hmm.
only as good as the last game. That is the only thing that matters. And certainly Clemson with what they have coming back. But they should be feeling good. But Spurrier said he's fired up again. Somebody tweeted back, so is Clemson. They're fired up again too. All right, let's move on to some other things. Here's a question from a tweeter. He heard something about Arkansas being interested in talking with Kurt Botkin.
Mm-hmm. Well, they did lose their linebackers coach.
Mm-hmm.
And he went to Florida. That is his alma mater. And that could be, who knows, that could be something in the works. Nothing will happen until after signing day. And, if he's interested, I don't think Arkansas has filled that spot. I don't know what kind of relationship he and Brett Bielema have, if they know each other, through various circles or whatever. But, that's something you have to think about.
You don't get the impression that any of the coaches currently on the staff want to leave necessarily, but that doesn't mean that Steve Spurrier doesn't want some of those guys.
Well, I think Spurrier may be just kicking to see if anybody that he's not necessarily excited about being at USC finds a job somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And then he decides to make some sort of a move. So, I mean, certainly there are very good coaches out there waiting in the bushes.
Yeah.
If Spurrier wants to make some sort of
He's not going to fire Lorenzo Ward.
I wouldn't think so.
I mean, if you're going to fire a coordinator, you don't do that after signing day. Now, unless Ward takes an NFL job or something crazy happens like that.
But, we might find that to be untasteful to do it, but in the coaching world, I think it's accepted practice.
Well, I'm just saying it doesn't make sense. You don't just start looking for a defensive coordinator that late in the game. He would have been in the game trying to get some of these other guys if you're going to make that move.
Okay, we're back. Sports Talk on this Friday night. Good to have you with us. Phil Kornblut, K-Mac, Kevin McCrary at your service. Professor Tom Hayes is taking the night off, getting an early start on his weekend. He's getting the beer on ice and getting the hamburgers and hot dogs ready for his big annual NFL Conference Championship game Sunday party. So that's why he's not with us tonight. You know, nobody throws a party like the pro does. You ever been to one of them? You know what I'm talking about.
Crazy. I mean, the police usually show up a couple hours
Gets
in.
a little rowdy. People, you know, naked women running around and things of that nature.
That's just every night at the professor's house.
Yeah. So anyway, he'll be back with us on Monday. Coming up in just a moment, going to hear from Clemson basketball coach Brad Brownell. Also planning to talk with Chuck Drizel, head basketball coach at the Citadel. Lee Klein, our basketball analyst. He'll join us as well here in just a few minutes. Now, the Tigers back at home and closing out the real difficult part of their schedule, this 5-game stretch to open up ACC play. They are 1-3. The win at Pittsburgh and the losses to North Carolina, at Louisville, and at Virginia. And, of course, Syracuse is no light touch. They're unbeaten in ACC play. Like these other teams, they have a nationally renowned lineup, and they have good size, 6'9", 250 inside with Rakeem Christmas, 6'8", 212 on the wing with Tyler Roberson. They always have a terrific backcourt, and the one thing you do know is what they're going to do on defense. They're going to zone you like nobody else can and force you to make the outside shot, force you to make the extra pass, and just make your life pretty miserable on the offensive side. They usually are one of the better defensive teams in the country because of it. Jim Boeheim, of course, a Hall of Fame coach. Syracuse's first appearance at Clemson since an NIT game in 2007, which I covered, which the Tigers won on their way to the Final Four of the NIT, and a championship game appearance in the NIT that year, in which you covered that, and they lost to West Virginia.
Yeah. That was Beeline's last game at West Virginia before he bolted for Michigan.
And so let's hear from Clemson coach Brad Brownell. He talked with the media today about getting his team ready to take on the Orange at Littlejohn.
It is good. It was, it was a long week. It was felt like a pro team, to be honest with you. It was, play, come home, pack, practice, travel again. It's hard to get your bearings, especially with the start of school and a lot of things going on in our guys. And, really in looking at it, our guys played well in 5 out of the 6 halves. Certainly the win at Pittsburgh was a really good one. And, the first half of the Virginia game was pretty good. I thought we did a lot of good things. Second half, we didn't play well. And so Virginia's really good. But it's good to get back, get home again, have a couple practices here, and we'll be here all next week. So we got 3 straight home games. Hopefully we can build some positive momentum. And, we got a difficult game with Syracuse to start.
Since the North Carolina game, do you feel like this team's gotten tougher? Yeah,
I think we're tougher. I think we've improved. It's some of it's not just, I think it's easy. Everybody wants to just blame things like, it's effort, it's toughness. It's not just those things. There's basketball execution that you're not doing well that, is a problem. And, certainly our team has needed to get a little tougher at times. I thought we showed great toughness at Louisville. I thought we showed great toughness at Pittsburgh. I thought we showed really good toughness in the first half of Virginia. So it's not just, and the same thing with effort in all those games. It's too easy for fans, even coaches, and sometimes players who really don't know what they're saying to say, well, we got to play harder. We got to be tougher. Yeah, that's part of it, but you have to be better. And that's the harder part, is executing better, making a shot in a timely fashion. whether it's, defending really good offensive players off screening action, like at Virginia, where if you get caught and you get screened, the guy's going to make the shot. It's not just effort. It's like there's some technique involved. And as the pace of the game goes, as the game gets fast, as you get tired, you get mentally weak, you have slippage. And so there's slippage in execution that is part of the problem. And then some of it for us, especially the offensive struggles at times, is where do we go when we really need a basket or when we need to make a play, and who's going to make it? And we played really well in the first half of Virginia. I can't emphasize that enough. And we were still down 6. That's one of the big points I said in the media room after the game, was that shows you how good Virginia is.
All right, Brad Brownell, some of his thoughts heading into tomorrow afternoon's game at Littlejohn against Syracuse. Now, we mentioned the big win last night by the Citadel over Wofford, come from behind victory in Charleston. Coach Chuck Drizel of the Bulldogs joining us now. And first of all, congratulations. I got to believe that's got to go down as maybe your best win so far at the Citadel.
It was a good one, Phil, and I'm really proud of the players and the effort that they gave and for getting a win like that. So yeah, it probably is. That's a really good Wofford team that we beat. Their record is an indication of it. They are off to a phenomenal start. So for our guys to do what they did, I'm real proud of them.
What about the way you came back? We're following that game on the scoreboard. We're seeing Wofford comfortably ahead there in the second half. We're thinking, okay, looks like the Terriers are going to get to 5-0 in league play. Next thing we know, you've cut it down, you get it to 2, and you go ahead and you win the ball game. How about that come from behind style of play?
Yeah, it actually happened twice, I think. We cut it, we were down 14 and then cut it down to 4, and then we got down 10 and cut it back down to 4. And finally, we made some big plays down there at the end. We had a freshman hit some big shots, Jake Wright, and that kind of gave us the momentum we needed to continue to play well there at the end. Ashton Moore was phenomenal, 28 points, shot a little over 50% from the field. But it was one of those games. It was a great game to watch. I think the fans enjoyed themselves. It's kind of tough as a coach, but we didn't quit. We didn't give up. And then at the end there, Ashton Moore made a heck of a defensive play to keep them from tying the game up.
Tell us more about Ashton. He's a senior guard. He actually had 29 last night, 21 in the second half, and he's having a terrific year for you so far.
Yeah, that's what you want out of your senior. And we haven't had seniors in a while, and so he and Marshall Harris and PJ Horgan are our leaders, and they've been doing a great job for us. But Ashton is just having a phenomenal year so far. He's he came into the season, we knew he could score. I mean, he's surpassed 1,000-point mark, but what he's really bared down on is his defense, and I think that's actually helped him even more on the offensive end. But I can't say enough about him. I hope he keeps playing this way. He's our go-to guy. He's a guy that's made some big plays throughout the season and certainly made a bunch of huge plays the other night in our win over Wofford.
All right, Coach, got a break coming up. Can we hold you over for just a moment?
Sure.
Got a minute? Okay. Chuck Drizel is with us from the Citadel. Bulldogs are 8-9, 3-3, however, in the Southern Conference. And coming off that win last night over Wofford in Charleston, 69-66. They're back at home against Furman tomorrow at 1 o'clock. So a chance to get to over the 500 mark in league play and back to the 500 mark overall if they can take care of the Paladins, who are coming off a loss the other night. And they are trying to kind of straighten things out with their season. They're 4-12. 2-4 in conference play. We'll come back and visit a couple of more minutes with Chuck Drizel, basketball coach at the Citadel, in just a moment here on Sports Talk. All right, back with Citadel basketball coach Chuck Drizel coming off the come-from-behind win over Wofford last night. So you're 3-3 in league play, a chance to get over 500 in league play tomorrow if you take care of business against Furman. Are you how do you feel about where you are? Are you about where you thought you would be? Maybe a little ahead, maybe a little behind?
Well, Phil, we've been playing some pretty good basketball this season. We've lost some close games early in the season to some quality opponents. We lost to VMI on our season opener on a last-second shot. We lost to College of Charleston, had a chance to tie it up on the free throw line with 12 seconds to go. And then we lost to Virginia Tech, tie score with about 20-some seconds to go. So we've been playing some good basketball. A couple things didn't go our way. I feel like we're right where we need to be. And I'm excited. I know the Kais are really excited about where we're at. They see themselves getting a little bit better every game, and looking forward to the next contest against Furman.
What has been the most pleasant surprise on your team individually? Who has sort of emerged and maybe given you more than you thought you would get in the preseason?
Well, you obviously we were expecting a lot from Ashton and Harris and Horgan, my three seniors, and I think they've delivered. I think Ashton has done a little bit beyond what I thought he could do, but still, we knew he would be our go-to guy. You never know with freshmen, and that's the X factor. And I think Jake Wright has really done a super job for us coming in. Gave us a spark against Navy, which was a great home win for us, and since then has really just been playing extremely well. But it's really been a team effort, a collaboration of everybody. We play just about our entire 11-man roster, and on any given night, it's a different guy, and so that's exciting because it's a good feeling in the locker room. Everybody feels involved. Everybody feels like it could be their night, and when you've got that going, then things usually turn out pretty good for you.
Yeah. Are you sensing the cadets and the fans now starting to get on board and get excited about what you're doing?
Well, we had a tremendous atmosphere Thursday night. The cadets were there. The fans were there. The entertainment was there. I was really, really excited about it. I thought it played a huge role in our success. We've had that on and off throughout this season, and so I think that's going to continue. If it does, then we've got something going. And but Phil, as just when you go through a season, you lose close games and you lose games. You got to fight against your team not getting too down. They got to stay focused. They got to get ready for the next game. We've had a little bit of success here, and certainly a huge win against Wofford. Now we got to make sure our guys don't get too overconfident and too lackadaisical, so to speak, and they still got to stay focused and come out and get the win.
Good luck to you tomorrow, and we thank you so much for visiting with us. We'll keep in touch and catch back up with you later in the season. That is Chuck Drizel, head coach of the Citadel. Bulldogs going to play host to Furman in their traditional rivalry. Now it's on the hardwood this time. That'll be in Charleston tomorrow afternoon. We'll be right back. right, coming up in a moment, a visit with our national basketball analysts here on Sports Talk, former coach Lee Klein. Before we get to him, we got a little bit more from the keypad and computer of Chris Lowe.
Yeah, from Steve Spurrier coming from Chris Lowe, who's getting a lot of good stuff from him. And he has another blog up now at ESPN.com on Steve Spurrier, not ruling out changes to the defensive staff. A couple of quotes of note in the piece from Spurrier. If I need to add a guy or two to the staff, I'll do it. There's still plenty of time to do that. Our coaches all know that. Our fans know that. When the time appears to be right, and I think we can bring a coach in here that will really help us, then I need to do that. That's my job. We'll see what happens, but that's where we are right now. There's a possibility that we'll add a guy down the road here soon. If not, we'll go with what we've got. That's from Steve Spurrier.
All right, so he refuses to put to squelch the behind the scenes rumors and conversations and innuendo about possible changes, and comments like this does nothing more than just fire that kind of stuff up. I think my gut tells me that based on what he's saying, in his mind, he will do some things after signing day, and that he's got an idea of who he wants to bring in. I've got some thoughts on what could possibly happen, but I hate to talk about that when coaches still have jobs.
Right, yeah.
I don't think it's fair to them, so I'm not going to go there. But I think people who follow football, who follow South Carolina, probably have an idea of who's out there and who would be available if Spurrier decided to do something like that. So, I don't think it's right for a head coach to wait until after signing day to do something like that. It's not fair to those players who are signed, but I also understand that coaches, they sign up for this. They know this is how it works. And any coach that's let go at South Carolina, if there are some or is one or are some, they are on multi-year contracts. So it's not like they're not going to have money coming in for at least a year while they try to find another job, if indeed that does happen. Now to a man who doesn't have to worry about that anymore. He doesn't take the shots. He calls the shots. Former coach and the director of the 5-Star Basketball Camp and contributor to Slam Magazine. He is Lee Klein. And how are you, sir? Good to have you with us again tonight.
Doing fine. And, it's interesting times as we're here midway January. Conference play now. These teams with a handful of conference games under their belt, and you're starting to get a real feel for, who's on top, who's struggling, and there's no prisoners. You start this busy weekend, Wednesday, you're on that 3 games in 7 days. So a lot of fun as now college hoops gets into the forefront as the pigskin goes away.
Absolutely. Want to talk to you first about tomorrow's game between Syracuse and Clemson. Clemson had that is in the final game of that 5-game, very difficult stretch to open ACC play. They've got 1 win to show for it. Now, Syracuse is coming in 4-0, but to me, it appears to be a little misleading 4-0 because they've escaped a few times here early in ACC play with some wins, and I don't know, are they as good as a 4-0 record would indicate that they are?
Well, they've been fortuitous. I mean, they survived Wake Forest in overtime at home in the Carrier Dome. This is not the Syracuse team that people have known in the past. This is not loaded with NBA players like the last 2 years teams have been. But you know what? It's Syracuse. They're going to defend every night. And right now, Rakeem Christmas, a senior who, quite frankly, did not do a lot for 3 years outside of being a defender and a rebounder, now has been unleashed as an offensive weapon, has been having a really good senior year. And Trevor Cooney's gained a little confidence back that was lost during some of the dog days last year. And he's a viable 3-point threat. So this is kind of a must-win game for Clemson in many ways to sort of get out of that bottom quartet of the standings. And for Syracuse, if they found a way to win this, next thing you know, they got 2 winnable games after this. They could be 7-0, not to put the cart in front of the horse. So then you really have to take them seriously because just, it's hard to get 7 wins in this conference. So how's it going to happen? It's going to be a defensive matchup. First to 60 is probably going to win this game. And, it's going to come down to really 3-point shots going to be important. Neither one of these teams are great from 3, but desperately needed to extend the defense. So that's, it's going to be sort of the also guys. Syracuse, Michael Benajay had a productive game last time out. They need that third wheel, if you will, whether it be Benajay, now that Chris McCullough's out for the year, or Tyler Roberson. And for Clemson, I think they're going to defend well enough, but can they get enough offense to win this game?
And then shifting over to the SEC, South Carolina and Auburn on the Plains tomorrow. I don't know about you, Lee. I'd almost like to watch this game with just cameras on both of the head coaches, 2 of the bigger personalities in college basketball, with Frank Martin and Bruce Pearl going at it.
No question. No question. This is a game, we talked, I want to say last week, when we talked about, it was important for South Carolina. It was an opportunity to win one of those two, and they, they lost a heartbreaker to, they got beaten pretty good by Ole Miss, but they found a way to beat Alabama, which is a quality win in this conference, to kind of get a win. Now you got to go to Auburn. Really a difficult place to play. You got to try to get Bruce Pearl when he's down. And, Auburn's taken some lumps this year. It's a game that South Carolina, I think it's twofold. One, they got to show that they can play away from home. And 2, this is sort of that growing up into being a team that, finds a way to win compared to one that maybe in the past found a way to lose. They got to get better play. Their 3-point, they haven't been a great 3-point shooting team. I know the upperclassmen had to sort of lead them to this victory against Alabama. Some of the more veteran guys, the Tyrone Johnsons, played well, and guys were struggling. Some of the younger guys struggle, and you hit a little bit of a wall if you're a young guy. This part of the season becomes tough. There's a lot of pressure. It's been it's like a roller coaster. So they got to find a way and get contributions from some of these young, if you will, Colts that have the ability to put points up and be effective. That they got to get them back going in the right direction.
They're going to see one of the better players in the Southern Conference, and Simeon Bowers. He leads the league thus far with 10 double-doubles. He's a new guy, a junior college transfer. And, what kind of player is he? What kind of problems will he present South Carolina's defense?
Yeah, it's an interesting team. I mean, part of it is the season goes along, Auburn's going to get better. And that's one of the things you're going to see. They found a way, they beat Missouri. And that's, 1, a testament to the coach, Bruce Pearl, and 2, because you have a lot of guys that came from different places that were sort of thrown together. Antoine Mason came from Niagara. Simeon Bowers, transferred in. So he's a guy finds a way to the foul line. And that's, he's not really a 3-point threat. He's a high volume, shooter. He's going to get, primarily one of their offensive weapons. He does a great job crashing the boards. You got to keep him off the offensive glass. And, the thing that he's done most effectively in this last little stretch of the season is get to the foul line. He likes contact. He finds a way to get contact. So you really got to, you got to defend him and understand and not allow somebody else to, if you will, because of that extra focus you put on him, and it allows somebody else to sort of go off this game. That's what you got to really be careful with.
All right, hang on, Lee. We're going to hold you over for a couple of moments and finish up with you in just a second, visiting with Lee Klein, our national basketball analyst here on Sports Talk. Simeon Bowers, a guy that South Carolina actually recruited some out of Chipola Junior College last year, but he committed to Auburn last April. Back. We continue with our good friend Lee Klein, Slam Magazine, former assistant coach at Texas, Rhode Island, and the director of the 5-star basketball camps, which has had a pretty good player or two come through over the years. Lee, good to have you with us once again. So, talking about SEC and ACC play so far to this point in the season, and wanted to ask you about the ACC race and what a start Virginia is off to. We talked about Syracuse, but Virginia continues to play very high level. First of all, they're so well coached, and it just seems like they run a clean game. I mean, their offense is well executed. They play very good defense. They don't turn it over a heck of a lot. They make their free throws. They're good outside shooters. Is there any particular weakness that you can find in this team?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, and it's guys know their role and they play right to it. And they've got. I think we all thought they'd take a step back when Joe Harris graduated and Akil Mitchell, but they've gotten stronger, and partly guys got better. Justin Anderson, who was was a 5-star kid and was a highly acclaimed recruit, and he was okay first 2 years of college, and now this year he's a superstar. He's shooting 55% from three. He's hitting all the big shots. He gets to the foul line. It's just that type of mentality. There's a mental toughness to this team. London Parentis, another 5-star kid, makes a lot of big plays. Not a stat sheet stuffer, just really effective. And we haven't even talked about Malcolm Brogdon, who's as good a guard as there is. So, that's what makes Virginia. It's really a lunch pail mentality. Everybody does their job. They know their limitations, and they do it. Now, ACC is tough, and they've got a stretch where they'll face Duke, Carolina, Louisville, and State back to back to back. That stretch, quite with 2 of those games on the road, that's going to be a stretch where you're going to see if this team is really right in the ilk of Kentucky, is how they end up in that stretch. But they right now are playing as good as anybody, and they're the team to beat. ACC, everyone else kind of Carolina's had a little hot streak, but this Duke Louisville game tomorrow really going to tell a lot of things, as both these teams need to play well to gain some confidence back that they could beat a legitimate team. And that's saying something. We talk about 2 of, if you will, the top level programs in this last, 6-8 years and longer, if you really want to, go historically back. But yeah.
All right, Lee, I wanted to ask you, too, about Florida back in the SEC. 24 SEC wins in a row. How is Billy Donovan doing it so far this year with this team? He's benched guys. He's got a short bench, but he continues to win. How's he doing it?
Well, because he's bigger than any player. I mean, the ego of the coach and the system, you're going to do it Billy's way or you're not going to play. And he's suspended guys in the past, and it's forced talented players. I mean, he's got 2 top 10 recruits that have underachieved. Casey Hill and the great, Walker have not played up to their recruiting prowess. And so now it's their opportunity. If they're going to be a great team, those guys got to play much better than they have. Dorian Finney-Smith's played well. Frazier's played well. Eli Carter. They got a couple juniors that have stepped up. But for this team to take that next step to be an elite team, you got to have that elite talent playing in that direction. You haven't seen. You'll find out how Florida is. I mean, I don't want to say they've had a soft opening to the SEC, but you playing at Georgia tomorrow. That's a whale of a game, and then you got LSU at home. Now you're going to see is this team right there towards the top of the conference, or if it's smoke and mirrors. So we're going to find out real quick about the Gator team. But the one thing Billy Donovan, he's got a system. Guys are going to fall in line. John Horford, you're going to do it Billy's way, or you're not going to play. And somebody else is going to step up because they have that much talent and it's just an opportunity for the next guy. And it's not a team you want to play in February. You want to try to get them when you can.
Lee, as always, we appreciate it. Great stuff. Enjoy your basketball weekend, and we'll talk to you next Friday.
My pleasure. Have a great one.
You too. Thank you so much. Lee Klein, who's with us here during basketball season on Sports Talk, sharing with us his insight and his overview of college basketball, especially in our part of the world. Back in a moment. All right, so the basketball schedule for tomorrow looks like this. Around the SEC, this is what you'll have to look at LSU. That's at noon on ESPN2. Florida at Georgia gets a CBS spot at 2. Kentucky at Alabama on ESPN at 4. Vandy at Mississippi State on Fox Sports at 4. SEC Network has Tennessee at Missouri at 6. USC at Auburn at 8:30. ESPNU has Ole Miss at Arkansas at 9:30. On the ACC menu for tomorrow, you've got Duke at Louisville. That's a noon game. I'm surprised that should be a 9 o'clock game on a Saturday night, I would think. Duke at Louisville, ESPN noon. NC State at Florida State, ACC Network at 1:30. Miami at Notre Dame. That should be a good game. ESPN2 at 2. Virginia at Boston College on the Regional Sports Network at 2. Georgia Tech at Pittsburgh, ACC Network at 4. Syracuse at Clemson, ACC Network at 4. And then the dreaded Sunday game. Ooh. I mean, how are you going to like this going up against the football championship games? You're going to have the end. This is a 6:30 tip. Virginia Tech at North Carolina on ESPNU at 6:30, near the end of the NFC championship game and right before the kickoff of the AFC championship game. Good luck getting anybody to tune into that, unless you're just a diehard Tar Heel.
Well, you'll probably want to tune in because you'll be melancholy about the Packers losing and want to watch basketball to get your mind off of
I don't do champagne.
What just happened.
Historically speaking, I don't do champagne when we win a conference championship. I save that for the Super Bowl, but I will pop a Coors Light or something like that.
Oh, wow, big baller.
Well, you have your traditions. You have your traditions. So that's what it is around the SEC and the ACC tomorrow. And let's see, other Southern Conference games. tomorrow. We've got, we mentioned Furman at the Citadel and Western Carolina at Wofford. Those are the only two games involving state teams tomorrow in the Southern Conference. And let's check out the Big South action tomorrow just to be complete, because the Big South, keep a close watch on those teams because they're playing very good basketball. Radford at Winthrop, that's at 1 o'clock. Gardner-Webb at Coastal, talked to Cliff this week, that's at 4:30. Charleston Southern at Presbyterian at 7:30 tomorrow night. So there you go. K-Mac, final thoughts from you as we wrap up the week.
Go Seahawks. Go Patriots.
Why do you want to do that?
Go Utah Jazz tonight against the Lakers. That's an important game.
Yeah.
For the Lakers to lose.
Kobe going to play, or?
No, he's not
got
going to play.
Got a toenail hurting.
17 dimes last night.
I watched him lose.
Career high.
Lost.
That's good.
Lost.
Losing is important.
You're years away. You're years away from being relevant again in the NBA.
The NBA doesn't take years
Decades.
to do anything.
Decades.
You wish.
All right, everybody, please, let's pull the Packers through. You'll be better off for it. Take my word for it if the Packers win. Thank you, Dalton Abel. Thank you, Steakman Graham Pope. Thank you, K-Mac. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you Monday night.